kind of, write it in a marble book. And at the end of the year party, you'd be like, hey, remember this quote, remember this story, and just kind of, it's like its own gag reel essentially of just your beloved clients. So if anyone did anything bananas today, I'd love to hear it. I mean, it is 2020.
I got a Thanksgiving joke.
Nice.
Let's hear it.
So why were all the pilgrims' pants falling down? Anybody?
Wow.
Because they wore their belt buckles on their hats.
It's a dad joke. Okay, hold on. I'm in the spirit of dad jokes. I got one for you that you've inspired me. Appreciate you. What do you call a bad cup of coffee?
There's no such thing.
A depresso. Ooh. Oh, it's not an espresso, it's a depresso.
That is definitely a dad joke.
Hey, I have a 13-year-old son and a 11-year-old going on 21-year-old daughter. So I'm right in that headspace of how corny and cheesy can I make myself to make you uncomfortable?
That's right. You got to keep it fresh.
That's what I've said. The best part about becoming a dad is it's now okay to tell dad jokes whenever you want. And then in your at this point when they're still babies, they laugh all the time. So it's great. It's great for the ego.
Right? Like, hey, check me out.
All right, good. Well, I think that we can get started. First, I just wanted to thank you guys all for being here at such odd hours. We know that everyone's, cross country and, with babies and biking and all kinds of good stuff over there. So we appreciate you fitting this in and hopefully impacting the other guys that couldn't make it tonight. We know that this is a really committed group and that there are a lot of other people who have a lot of other things going on too. So just thank you guys very much. I'm going to share my screen. Do I sound okay? I keep hearing my mic blip. Is everything cool? Everybody? Okay. Yeah. All right, good. All right, I'm going to share my screen and make sure I can get this thing rolling. Wonderful. So tonight we have the 5 rules. This is something that Eric has made a part of his life. It's actually become a part of my life through some really challenging times personally. I've found these things to be incredibly empowering. Although there's a lot of gravity to them, they have been things that carry me through my whole life, especially it's like times when resilience needs to be built. So as a rundown for tonight, we're going to take these 6 points here. We're going to do a little beyond the bio. There was a lot of time spent on Eric's story last time. We're going to let you a little hint in on me, as well as a little rounding out of Eric and where some of his story rounds out even more. Making the mindset, so we start to get into the concepts of like why this matters. Preparing for calmness or chaos. Where are we? Are we prepping in that realm of chill, everything's easy, or like times like now when things are very unpredictable and uncertain. Battle drills we mentioned last time, but we're going to go into them in a little bit of a different aspect. Then we really get into the nitty gritty of the 5 rules, kind of really fun part. And then some time for Q&A. This group is smaller than the previous, so I think it'll be a really nice time for us to dig in. So hopefully you guys have like some kind of notebook around that you can take some notes, because we do ask some questions in here. Pretty much rhetorical until we get to the end. And if we want to kind of dive into some people, there's a raise hand little option on your Zoom that will help us facilitate anybody that does have a question, or you can always type it in the chat. I can't always see that, so I'll probably lean on Eric or somebody else to chime in if there's somebody I can't see that has a question. Oops.
Right. All right. So we're jumping right in, and I want to give my accountability to this group and hold me accountable to tell my story and then make sure it relates and translates. And then if we have an impact, then we're in the bonus area. So we talked about a true believer. We talked about what we face out there. And I think this true believer quote is a powerful quote. So you take a look at it, but I also want to read it so you hear what it sounds. And where this quote came from was Special Operations Assessment and Selection course. And this was briefed to the candidates from a cadre member who just came back from downrange range early on in the war. And he was describing to the people who wanted this lifestyle, who wanted to go to war in an elite fashion. And he said, this is who's waiting for you. Somewhere a true believer is training to kill you. He is training with minimum food or water in austere conditions, day and night. The only thing clean on him is his weapon. He does not worry about what workout to do. His rucksack weighs what it weighs, and he runs until the enemy stops chasing him. The true believer doesn't care how hard it is. He knows either he wins or he dies. He doesn't go home at 1700. He is home. He knows only the cause. Now who wants to quit? How does that relate to you? Well, it's a reminder of why we're here and who's potentially waiting out there for us. And we're going to revisit this true believer concept, but I think it's important that right now, as we see this, as we sit here right now, there is another physical therapy organization who wants your PLL contract. There is another physical therapy organization out there who wants to take all of your clients. There's another physical therapy agency out there who wants to grow and expand bigger and faster than all of you do. And they don't care about your livelihoods, your problems, or how good of a person you are. And that's the context of how and why you walk through the door and what you're doing. It's who else is out there waiting and who's that competition at the heels and what's that driving factor. And so I just wanted to take the true believer and just tuck that away in the back of our minds there. And we'll revisit that.
Yeah, so kicking it off with that like real focused bit, wanted to draw over toward what makes us do what we do. And I wanted to shape a little bit of my background here along with Eric. I come from an athletic background. I love surfing. I know some of you guys are in California, you probably do as well. I have a daughter. Eric has a couple kids too. He's got a son and daughter, like he mentioned, and his wife. They live not far from me. We're in Maryland, all of us. So I also, like I mentioned, I played lacrosse in college. And if you can see my bandaged up leg in that one picture, I had just blown out my knee a day and a half before in a semifinal game in the last game of my career. And my coach asked me to play in my final game and said, you know, your 70% is better than other people's 100, and tried to get me to play. That's in warm-ups where I was hobbling around and was like, this isn't going to happen. Sorry, I'm like maybe 30%, not 70. So just wanted to give these little points out here to shape and let you know that we are lifelong athletes who are very much fans. Like I think I mentioned this the first session, very much fans of lifelong learning, continuing education on ourselves and the mechanics of our bodies. And really, like, you know, you guys are such healers for people like yourselves probably also that are out there challenging in life, challenging themselves, trying to grow and get stronger as you go. Also mentioning, we have done some work with the PLL. We've done some work in the pits at Daytona. That was a 24-hour race that we got to attend. That was a really fun experience to see how stress happens over a really long endurance kind of atmosphere. And also, about a year ago today, we were in Japan. When the PLL went to Japan, we took it upon ourselves because I had a contact from my college trainer, actually, who hooked us up with her soccer team, and a 40-year coach that comes from the culture of Japan and what he's learned in that field over the years. If anybody ever wants to go abroad, we're always there. We're always up for it.
What's important to note here is, you know, last session, quick refresher, was the Shoot Out for Soldiers video, which, you know, described kind of my background career in the military. And it ended with talking about Ben Harrow. And if you look in the middle picture and just kind of look at the legs, you see, you know, two of those legs don't look like the rest of them. And so that's Ben. All right. So Ben had, he stepped on a pressure plate IED. He shouldn't be alive. He is. We'll see that here in a second. But what's important to note here is he's alive because of his will to live, which is another story. But he's also here because people like you, whom we're speaking with, sat down there and took a very, very hardened guy, a very stubborn, calloused man, and empowered him to be where he's at today. And so I'm speaking to the community who took care of my brother. And again, that's why you hear some of the passion and energy directed towards these physical therapists, you all, and the clinics that you're in and what you all do. The direct result is my brother right there standing on legs. And we were able to play lacrosse again, which I can't articulate the impact that had on the two of us from a brotherhood perspective, but what that did for the greater community and people who don't have legs, the people who are alone, and what does that do? All right. So again, the impact that you all have on people to get them back to them best selves or their best version and physically capable. Wow. Wow. And so this picture captures that in a really powerful way. Here's another piece I want to demystify what we're talking about. And it's, you don't need to be a big airborne ranger or a Delta operator or a special forces soldier. I submit to you that heroism isn't a mysterious inner virtue. It's a collection of skills that every man and woman can master so that in a pinch, they can become a protector. I highly recommend this book, Natural Born Heroes by Christopher McDougall. It chronicles a World War II village in Crete, Greece, and how a small untrained village overthrew the most massive battalion of SS Nazis in that World War II era. And this is the premise that I want to share with you, that this mindset is available for those who want to grow and develop. So what is the mindset? How does this little kid wearing a bandana, holding his lacrosse stick, end up hanging on the side of a bongo truck? The picture on the right there is your screen. That is Afghanistan 2007. That is with the 82nd Airborne. And the context behind that picture is, one, there's Reyes in the truck. And if we remember the keynote, Sergeant Reyes and I shared a pretty special moment. This mission took place about a month after that Sangin story that I told you. The impact of a shared hardship and a hard experience shared together, and when you literally have each other's lives in your hands, again, there's a bond that's formed. And so this truck was our resupply truck. On top of the roof, you see duffel bags filled with ammo and water and a little bit of food. I'll say it again: ammo, water, and a little bit of food. That bongo truck got stuck on a road outside of a compound that we're occupying. Earlier in the day, one of my squad leaders stepped on a pressure plate IED and he was blown up. Survived, he's okay. But they saw what we were doing and they attacked us. The true believer was sitting there waiting for us. And at our vulnerable spot, he hit us. So now this picture was in night when we own the darkness, and I literally save who needs to be saved. I ran out of the compound in my flip-flops and a t-shirt and ranger panties, ran way, way far away from our compound to go help them get unstuck because I was so scared they were going to get blown up and get into contact again. So I ran out there like an idiot hero trying to do the thing. And so what I want to take away from this is the culture that's formed in an organization compels you to do things that you wouldn't normally do, and to do things that not necessarily because you need to be a hero. It's because the love and compassion and bonds you have is an undeniable force. And that's what I want to relate to you here today. The little brother of war and what lacrosse and sports did translates into this team apparatus. And so I use lacrosse because that's my story and where I came from. And I offer to you all, I'm sure you were athletes at some point, you were part of a team at some point, and you are part of a team right now. What is your game and passion that allows you to grow and expand beyond your normal organization? Where do you find these connection points with your brothers and sisters. Remember first platoon and second platoon? I kind of talked about second platoon was over here, watching us do things over here. We talked about their culture and how they were. We're going to peel that back a little bit more today, but this was it. All right, first platoon versus second platoon. And so we have the culture of 82nd, but now we have the tactical subculture of our platoons and organizations. So what does that look like? Well, that looks like evolution physical therapy is here, and you have platoons and then even task force within your organizations. So what do your clinics look like? What does your task force look like? What is the motto? All right. What are these things? How do we peel them back just a little bit more? And we're going to circle back to this, but choose your side. Do you want to be on first platoon's team, or would you want to be on second platoon's team? Or, hey, you have your own team and that's what you want to do. The bottom line to all of this is that culture is a team fight. Your coworkers are your team. They're your teammate. They're your coworkers, but they're your teammates. We look at the components of physical therapy, and we touched on this last week, but I want to reinforce it again right now. These are the components that creates an unbreakable bond. These are the ingredients. Feeling trust and safety. I ask you, do your patients trust you? Do they feel safe when they're in your care? Vulnerability. People are in front of you, literally broken. They're literally broken. They're at their most vulnerable state. An injured human being, an injured animal is by definition vulnerable. And you are there to get them where they need to be. That's an incredible amount of care and vulnerability. A shared understanding, awareness, and consciousness. Are you aware of your patient, or you have your program and you're just going to drive your program down their throat? Or are you looking at the whole patient? Are you looking at their lifestyle? If they're an older person, do they have a cardiovascular issue? Are they diabetic? What other things are looking at this whole person, how they're going to heal, right? Common values and goals. Very simply put, do you set goals for your patients? Probably yes. Do you share values with your coworkers? Probably yes. Otherwise, you wouldn't work there. Elite communication is far beyond the words that are spoken. It's the body language. It's looking at them wince. It's looking at them perform the exercise that you've just told them to do. Are you aware of your body language and your energy and what you're bringing to that fight, into that conversation? Are you actively listening to your patients so you can hear what they're saying, so you can use your expertise to get them to where they need to be? But when you look at the components of physical therapy as it relates to what I'm presenting to you, man, that feels like a fit. To me, it feels like a fit. Let's take this one step further.
Oh, sorry.
Well, go ahead, please.
And just say, for you guys, you do these things that are on this slide. You know, after talking with Mike a lot and some of the leadership team, you're doing these things really well. This is the components of your physical therapy realm. But like, you want to elevate the potential for your clients to perform. We want to elevate the elements of the performance for this entire greater group, and also those tactical subgroups that we see that are in your locations and in your task forces and all of the other various subgroups that you have. So we look at the way you look at a patient, we are looking at your teams. So I just wanted to bring that in as the part of the purpose of why we're doing this together.
Taking that a step further, let's revisit the team culture piece. And again, you have the strategic team of evolution PT, and you have these tactical subculture team components. And I think just another way to ask the very same questions is swap a word. Do your coworkers trust you? Do your coworkers feel safe around you? Do they feel that they could be injured around you? Can they have a sense of vulnerability where it's like, hey, God damn, Mike, this COVID is really kicking my ass today. I just treated a patient that brought back memories of my own self, or I just saw something happen, right? Any number of things. Like, are you able to share that with your teammates there? I don't know. Are you comprehensively aware of your teammates, right? If you see your teammate or coworker and you see them off, are you like, hey, well, hey, John's having an off day, all right? I mean, whatever, it's Friday, I'll be good. Or it's like, hey, man, just something's a little bit off today. What's good or what's not good? Let's just talk, right? Those little things. Common goals. Are you setting your own goals? What do you want to do as a physical therapist within your world of evolution PT? What is it that you want to pursue an extra credential? You want to pursue an extra seminar? You want to open up a whole nother field of what physical therapy can be. What are those goals personally and professionally? And do you share these values with your coworkers? Do you share these goals with your coworkers to help each other stay accountable to yourselves? And then the elite communication piece, again, it goes far beyond the spoken verbal word. It's the body language. It's the unspoken words. It's the things not said, right? So now we're talking nuanced behaviors because yes, we are elevating where we are. We're not talking about communication, right? Children do that. We're talking about elite communication, what professionals do. And what professionals do is they live in the nuance, in the little things. And that elite communication is one of those nuanced things. And how you communicate, and it's like, hey, well, no one told me that. That says an awful lot right now. Oh, they didn't tell me. I wasn't aware of that. We're going to revisit that statement here in a little bit. I'm not calling any of you out. I'm using my own example again. But these are the things that go into these events when are we going to be in calm, cool and collected, or are we going to be in chaos when the shit hits the fan? And so we have here is a graph of a military type event. And we have on the left a presence patrol. So we are deployed Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, maybe even Africa. And our task is to go out and engage the local population. That could be a scary event if you're untrained, but if all you're doing is just walking out in sector, that's too easy. Well, now you have to go do a raid, which means you're going to attack a certain building or compound, or you're targeting something to go kill or capture that person. Well, that's pretty stressful too, but you train for that. And then there's a high value target raid, Osama bin Laden, Zarqawi, these savages that need to be eradicated from the earth because they do harm to civilians and innocent people, women and children, and they have to go away. And those are the worst kinds of people that don't want to be caught. And in that stressful event, if you're in that chaotic moment, if you're untrained, unprepared, and you don't understand how to operate and what kind of algorithm you should be thinking in that chaotic moment, this is what happens. Catastrophic failure happens. Someone doesn't come home. That's what happens. Now, you have training and mental models and stress tools. That takes chaos and uncertainty and unknowing and drops it right down. And that lowers your baseline. That lowers your resting heart rate. That opens up your physiologically. So you're out of the tunnel vision. You can see the whole target. You're looking at the whole world again. You're looking at all available information. And you're calm, you're cool, and you are collected at the mission ahead. And so when you have these things, let's just call them battle drills for lack of a better term. When you have these battle drills and things that you're doing as a professional, your new baseline is someone else's chaotic moment. And that's what I want to relate to you. I don't expect any of you to be going to kick down doors and to do these sorts of things, but I want to relate it to you here. So let's look at this. COVID begins, lockdown begins, uncertainty ahead. Now let's move that apparatus a little bit forward. Now we can't get in groups, we can't meet together. Now there's a political event going on that's polarizing us even more, which is adding just periphery stress to us. And then COVID continues. And now maybe some of our family members get sick, right? Maybe we know someone who, God forbid, something didn't go well. And the restrictions continue and there's no end in sight. Now let's really crank this up to where we are again, holiday seasons. And now people are going to be alone. The workload is increasing because now people may get laid off or they can't come into work and you have to do more on your own at the same level that you worked at before. And maybe personally, you're a people person and you can't be in the office and you can't get that release to go out and enjoy your coworkers and your team. And your mental health starts to suffer. And then an external factor hits you, a stressful event, life hits you with an unknown thing. And does that look like, hopefully it's not death, we kind of scale it back a little bit from the really dramatic piece, But in civilian life, you're unemployed and out of business. That's what that looks like. That's the culmination punchline. And so if we don't look at how do we work ourselves to stay out of this heightened state and bring ourselves down and reestablish a baseline, so then we can be an industry leader. You can have an international evolution PT presence. And I'm just going to throw it out there. Lacrosse is on track to be an Olympic sport. 2024, maybe 2028. Why not evolution PT be the preferred provider of physical therapy? Why the hell not? Why can't you see those little Olympic rings around evolution PT? I think that's badass. And I think the direction you all are heading, you're going to get there. But it's important. You got to look. On one end, you're unemployed, out of business. You can't handle these things. And if we look at what are our battle rhythms and what are our battle drills, training, mental models, stress tools, we don't reduce these things. Or when we do reduce them, man, we catapult up and forward, right? That fires me up for you. Fundamentals. Everything the military does is right there. 8 simple battle drills. That's it. That's the complexity and the simplicity of how we operate. And in that crazy mission that I relayed to you a couple weeks ago, these were the things that we were doing without even having to speak. And if you look at what it even says, the definition, these are things that soldiers can do without being told what to do. It's their daily algorithm. It's what they bring to the fight. It's what you're showing up to your clinic with. It's everything that you're bringing without being told what to do, because you know what to do. You've been to good school. You've been certified. You know the process. And no matter what, the biggest punchline for all soldiers is we need to be able to shoot, to take action, move into the way or out of the way, and communicate clearly and succinctly what we're doing. So as leaders, you have to take some type of action. And then there's some type of movement energy that goes along with this. Pick up a phone, write an email, meet with a patient, and then we're communicating what we're doing. And those are the little battle rhythms that allow people to survive horrific situations. Demystifying the whole thing. Breaking down all the heroic movies and war movies that you see, and simply put, they can be put down in these categories. And so if we're able to use these things successfully in the worst possible situation in the world, then I have to believe that there's a set of battle drills and principles that can be related back to the civilian world here for you. It's the foundation for all elite operations. You don't get cool here without putting in the process and putting the steps in there.
So we're going to talk for a second about the concept of battle drills in our own lives. There are, for me, I always say, like, making your bed or brushing your teeth. Those are battle drills you do mindlessly that take, no real effort to get yourself to do. Sometimes maybe a little tired to do them, but how you do anything is how you do everything. So we talk about the things that First Platoon was doing regularly for each other and the way that they showed up. We also talked about the mentality of Second Platoon and what they contributed or lack thereof. So what are you accountable for in your daily battle rhythm? When we talk about battle rhythm, that's just your pace. What you do is your expected to-dos every day. So we kind of wanted you guys to bring a notepad and paper. If you can't, that's fine. You can even type it in your phone if you feel like it. But wanted to give you a second to consider these things, because how you show up for each other in this COVID time is truly an opportunity to identify when, for some of us, this may be the only opportunity we have to connect with another person all week. That really the evolution family is like really becoming a family, maybe more so than your own family in some ways. It could be the only time that your patient is able to come see an environment that is like just going to feed them emotionally and as well as like their physical, strengthening. It could be the only time that somebody comes to you that, like let's say you have this 11 a.m. that's always draining you. You hope that your teammate sees that in you and can give you a nudge, like you can get through this. I'm here for you if you need anything. So what can you do without being told? What are those things that are around your environment? It could be personal, it could be at work. wiping down something for someone because they're really busy, or maybe just because. Making calls, like Eric said. What problems can't you solve on your own? Are there any restrictions or limitations on you? But really, what can you solve on your own? So we just wanted to give you a second. I'll pause here and just give you a little second to think about it. Okay, so we'll hop over because we'll have more time to go into that, and we have a PDF that's going to be up on the drive. I think we gave you guys a link to a Google Drive that's dedicated to you guys, so you can find all of the links and documents that you may want to look at for all these presentations and things. So we wanted you also to take a second to consider describing your culture. The way I mentioned, you guys have your eyes and awareness on the body's functionality. I'll bring out a moment for me. I used to compete in CrossFit, like came out of kind of nowhere. I was like one of the oldest people that was doing it when I was coaching and competing. And I had to go to physical therapy, like most CrossFitters have to do at some point. And my PT that has a great reputation in my area down here, he would talk about how I did my push-ups, and push-ups are kind of one of my biggest strengths. And he would talk about how much better I could be doing at them because I was dumping into my delts, which you guys might, everything was forward on me because I had a lot of missing stuff in other areas of my shoulders and back. So he'd talk about how much I'm leaving on the table by being out of position. That's what we do, but with our eyes on your team. So that's why we're talking about these things, about eyes on the culture of the you guys that you're bringing to the table each day, because there can be so much strength gained by optimizing these little things that you can do for each other just by kind of turning on that a little bit. So looking at the first platoon, second platoon motto, the fact that second platoon didn't have one, and it's either they didn't take the time to, they just thought it was weird, like the whole mentality, I hate the Army, are we done yet? When are we leaving kind of thought makes you kind of grasp why they may not have had a motto at all. Maybe they don't go out and hang out and decompress together. Maybe they don't work out together. Maybe there's no subculture that's kind of grabbing hold and like really creating something worth fighting for. And we talk about the leaders, seasoned and hardened leadership on one hand, experienced and trained on another. And both can have like their own kind of approach to things, but who are you going to lean on when you're in a situation that's unexpected, or that you just don't really know as well as somebody that's been through some stuff? So people who are lifelong learners could also be another approach to this, like people who are always hungry to get that continuing education, not only in physical therapy, but maybe personal development, career, business, all of those things. Retention rates, we talk about like how often are you getting turnover? Who doesn't really want to be in that location? Are you kind of noticing that stuff, or is it just kind of a place that has like kind of a tension in the air? What's the morale like? Is there that pride that comes from wearing that Evolution logo on your stuff? I see a bunch of you guys have like your Evolution stuff on, and the pride that's in that, some of the social media pieces that are put out, it's really wonderful. What's it really like at the tactical level there, interpersonally with each other? And what's the approach to daily life and battle drills? It's cool to care is a first platoon kind of mentality and an approach, and versus like, when are we leaving? I'm just going to kind of check in, check out. How much are you leaving on the table in that? So we have this column here for you guys. Again, I'm going to give you a minute to think about maybe some opportunities. You may not have to answer these exactly, but maybe some opportunities toward like, maybe we should get together a little bit, once a month, or maybe we could, be having lunches together or something like that. And perhaps it even applies to a task force that you're in. So it can be locational, It could be a task force that you're like, yeah, I could answer all of those things in my task force, you know. So take a minute here and we'll give you some time to write some notes down for yourselves.
All right. Now, I think we've laid, I hope, a good foundation and background and context for you that things are interchangeable when you can shift your perspective, and we're here to help shepherd the perspective and learn a new way. So being uncomfortable is part of this process. Being pushed beyond the comfort zone, part of the process. Looking inward, yeah, hey, maybe I'm the one who wants to leave early. Maybe that's part of the process. So what I want to offer to you here are 5 rules. And these 5 rules, I think, are adoptable in any facet of life and in any industry or sector. And in my interview, in my previous financial life, right? I mean, finance, there's nothing more white collar and soft handed than finance, the finance types, I should say. And I love them all, right? You're all good. But, you know, I was a registered fiduciary and got all my licenses and all that kind of good stuff. And in my, in a promotion interview, a board promotion, no less, they're like, well, you know, what about you? You know, what could we expect from you? And I just was like, hey, I have these 5 rules that I live my life by, and they may be aggressive, but here they are. And when I rattled them off, at that point, they all kind of stopped and started to like, hey, wait, slow down, stop. And I was like, shit, there it is. Like, okay, you are kind of a Looney Tune. Let's just put you over here. But each of the executives who have been in the civilian sector and very successfully, we started taking notes on these. And that's when I really realized that they can be applied elsewhere in life. And that's what I really want to share with you. What we're going to see here is a passionate delivery of where these got a modern birth from. So speakers up. Chelsea, hopefully this motivates you to pedal harder.
And also, I just say that, you know, context that you guys have gotten, Eric breezes over in this. He says, I've been through a lot of hellish situations, and you guys have gotten a glimpse into one of those things, and that was actually a really pretty positive outcome compared to some of the other things Eric's been through. So when he's talking about this stuff, you can see all over his face, and now you have a little bit more of that background to really fuel and connect with this.
Second half of the season starts today. You know, I brought these guys in, guys who exemplify what it means to be great peer leaders, leadership through adversity. This is Captain Ben Harrell. He's a Special Forces Green Beret. We got Eric Video, who's in the 75th Ranger Regiment, retired as a major.
If I can distill a lot of warfare, a lot of combat, and a lot of hellish days, 5 simple things. Number 1, everything is your responsibility. Number 2, save who needs to be saved. 3, you kill who needs to be killed. Number 4, this is really special. No one is coming to save you, gentlemen. 5, always be working. It's what the Native Americans did. It was what it was forced to prepare for war, prepare young men to get after it, to do this battle. It prepared he and I to go overseas and take it to the enemy, come back. For him to should be dead, alive. This sport, the ambassadors, right here I'm talking to. This is a sport that we love. We came to watch you guys go get after it.
I learned a lot of lessons as a lacrosse player, and one of those lessons was find comfort in discomfort. All right, that's a lesson that I learned as a defensive middie, and I took that later on through this Ranger School, Special Forces qualification course, and even to Iraq and Afghanistan, especially the day that I got injured. Because when I stepped on that bomb, I knew it was my responsibility to stay alive
bleeding out on the desert floor, and my teammates are going to come get me. So it's your own responsibility to do what you need to do for your teammates to your left and right, because together, that's how you win a game. And together, that's how I came back alive, all right? So let's get a fucking W today.
For Chrome, 19-11. Their first win of the season snaps a 5-game losing streak, and their first win of the season snaps a 4-game winning streak for Chaos.
Good stuff, isn't it? Good stuff. I hope you feel that. Hope you feel that. Everything is your responsibility. That's a heavy statement. If you adjust your mindset and your perspective, this is an opportunity to embrace anything that comes your way, including adversity and certainly uncertainty. When you understand that 10,000 hours is that's your ante to the table. That's the work that's put in to master your craft to come here. And that's not good enough anymore, because now we got to step it up and elevate, right? You got yourself here, but now the team is here. And when everything is your responsibility, and that's a mantra in a way that you operate, wow, that's kind of a person you want on your team. That's someone who's spearheading initiatives. That's person who's getting after it, right? Sees the trash on the ground example, picks up the trash, finds a new client, opens up a new industry, because they realize that it's not going to happen by itself. You adjust your mindset, you realize that life is not a finite thing. It's an infinite game, and it's a never-ending game of business and life and goals, leadership, relationships. When you take that mantra that everything is your responsibility and it's on you to get done, things start to get a little bit easier when you approach your day, when you wake up and you realize, like, this is what's waiting for me. All right, let's go. We're moving. In the very same breath, mission first, people always. And in the chaos, people are looking for calmness. They're looking for the helper. In a chaotic moment, people are screaming and they're unknowing what's to happen. I'm charging you all that you need to save who needs to be saved. You need to be the calm helper who can be relied upon, someone who their teammates wants to call, someone who wants their teammate on their team. Are you a person who is savable? Does your teammate want to save you? Are you capable as a person? Have you collected the proper skills so that in a pinch, you can be a protector? And this is for a man or a woman or a child. You save who needs to be saved. Be very clear with this one. This is not an advocation for violence and to harm your fellow coworkers or even a random person on the street. The contrary. This is your permission to block the negative bullshit and raise the positive energy around you. Destroy the negative energy and the toxic relationships that start with yourself and spread to the relationships around you. That includes negative self-talk. That includes hearing someone else say negative things. That's someone who's doubting themselves or doubting the organization or doubting the leadership there forward. This is that permission to step in and have a conversation. And it's not aggressively saying, hey, what are you doing? Hey, man, what's going on? I realize, hey, is everything okay? I realize things are tough. You're bringing like this energy you're bringing, man. It's dragging me down. How do you think your patients are feeling with that? COVID is what it is. The economy is what it is. You can control what you can control. The things you can't control, kill them. Get rid of them. Pay no attention or energy to them, because the things that are going to get you to where you need to go are waiting for your energy and attention. Get the bullshit out of the way. The negativity spreads far faster and far greater than positivity. So your charge is to spread that positivity. Crowd favorite right here. No one is coming to save you. If you knew that, would you act differently? Would you conduct yourself differently throughout your day? this statement, actually, one of our, we presented this statement, and another executive said, I'm taking this statement, and this is now our mantra that's going in the headquarters building. When someone walks through our front door, I want I want this statement here, and I want our logo here, and I want them to see that this is how we operate. We operate in a mindset where no one is coming to save you. And if you all operate in that mindset, my God, think about what you can do as an individual, but more importantly, as a collective team. If you realize you don't have to wait for someone to tell you something or wait to be told what to do, and you're like, dude, I got it. I know what needs to happen, and let's go execute. The military transitioned from, I'm going to tell you check by checklist what to do. And if you don't do that, you're going to fail and recycle you, or you're not going to be a leader. That very quickly changed in the advent of Iraq and Afghanistan and fighting a counterinsurgency. And so what our leaders, blessed to have General Stanley McChrystal as my commanding general, West Pointer, also Airborne Ranger. I had him as my leader. I had the benefit of learning from one of the most brilliant military minds that our country's ever seen. And he empowered our platoons and our ground force task force to go execute our missions with almost unlimited permission. We had some limitations left and right, of course, moral and legal things, but we were empowered to act. So when you're empowered to take action and you realize in your heart that, hey, no one's coming to fix this, no one's coming to save me, there's a certain energy that could fill your soul. In the military, we're also trained to carry our own medical kit and our body bags for that matter. And we knew that if we go down, like what Ben said, his job when he got hurt was to stay alive. That's all he needed to do. He went to find his medical kit. He went to go through all the motions that he should have done, and he did. And that's why he's alive, because then his teammates came and kept him alive. And then the next team came and kept him alive. You see that chain of events right there? It starts with the person, the one who looks in the mirror. And again, no one is coming to save you. Let that be a rally cry of liberation, that you are unstoppable. You have all the resources and capability that you could possibly need or want. Always be working. If there's ever a question on what to do, we'll always be working. And I'll say this, that the Ranger Creed says it very, very clearly, very clearly. Never shall I fail my comrades. I will always keep myself mentally alert, physically strong, and morally straight. And I will shoulder more than my share of the task, whatever it may be, 100% and then some. That's a creed we live by. When you have that creed and you have that relentless approach to always be working, again, everything's your responsibility. Save who needs to be saved. Kill what needs to be killed. No one's coming to save you. And if you're standing there, dress, well, who else needs help? What else could I be doing to better myself? Because standing here does no one any benefit. Being here and just being a figurehead on the wall doesn't help the team. And these rules are born in the highest stakes game, close quarters combat. These rules, there's their origins. Doesn't need to be attached to a fancy MBA. It's not attached to a fancy PhD, although I submit that these themes are nested within academic research, but you can't measure and quantify these intangible things. And the world is also realizing that the world isn't built on metrics that you can measure. There's an intangible human aspect of it, and humans aren't necessarily ones and zeros. We're very complex animals. And sometimes complex animals do their best with the most simple guidance, the most simple set of rules that can be instilled in anyone at any time. And there they are for you. Did I say culture's a team fight yet? You ask yourselves, is evolution, are we a team? Everything that I've seen is screaming yes. Do you consider yourselves a task force? Do you consider your coworkers to be your teammates? Do you approach your work with the same energy that you approach your passions? And if not, how do we get them aligned? How could you pursue your passions within what you're doing? Is anything stopping you? We're going to take a peek at the videos from 1st and 2nd platoon again. Quick videos, but now you have initiated eyes and ears, and not just looking at or hearing gunfire and watching explosion and being in wow. I don't want you in awe anymore. I want you dialed in, looking at the team, hearing what they're saying, look at the facial expressions of their body language, and what are you feeling watching them? We're going to watch 2 videos, and you pick what team you want to be a part of.
Wow. That's what's up. That building is gone. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. That was a cache. Oh, that's the cache blowing up? Fuck. That was just the cache. I think they're blowing the cache, Sark. They didn't give us a warning at all, so.
You see the facial expression? You hear they're not in the action, right? This is just a quick refresher. This is roughly 5 p.m. after we've been in a gunfight since roughly 9 a.m. and they're still in the wrong place doing the wrong things. Fortunately for us, they took video. So we're able to see them as a subculture watching the action, watching the people who are getting after it. And this is how they're reacting. Oh, look at that explosion. Wow, that's gone. Not, goddamn, do they need help? What's going on with 1st platoon? Do they need reinforcements? How can I help them? How can we maneuver? What needs to happen to protect their flank? They didn't tell me they're blowing something up. They didn't tell us this. They're sitting on the sidelines like they're owed an explanation, like they're owed information, like they're owed something for being there, when it's their responsibility to take initiative, to take action, but they're still sitting there. Hardened, trained men are still sitting on the sidelines saying, wow, here's some camera. Look at this stuff. Imagine being me, our platoon, in that gunfight, knowing that these folks are not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not protecting our flank like they're supposed to do. They're not following with their mission. So you have a massive breach in a cultural trust and everything like that. But from the context of California to Connecticut, there's some clinic that's always in the action. I'm not saying there's a clinic out there who's second platoon and they're not doing the right things or they're doing the wrong things. Quite frankly, it's just, here is 2 organizations put on display for you to see an example of what this looks like in real time. So that's second platoon, watching us drop bombs on the enemy. Now we're going to see the next clip. And Alexis, I know you had something to add here. The next we're going to see is what that fight looks like in the worst possible day for these men, this platoon.
Yeah, just
the worst possible
there's some language in here that I wanted to make sure that anybody who's home with other, with kids around, be careful. Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Fuck yeah, motherfucker! Fuck yeah, bitch! That just happened. There they are. There's the man who did it. Keep going, guys.
Makes me so happy to see, because I know when I look at their faces, a lifetime of memories flash by their faces. But I know I kind of panned very quickly, but given the context of being in a gunfight for almost 9 hours, And now we're going back to the scene where we got beat up pretty bad, beat up really bad. And then we had to go back to finish that fight. And this is what their faces look like: jubilation, smiles, bobbing the heads. What I want to believe, and they also shared, there's no place they'd rather be. 10,000 miles away in a poppy field, in a mud hut, dropping bombs on people who are actively trying to make sure we never came home to our loved ones. And they're able to smile. So I have to believe that if we're able to do these things in very far places under very horrific conditions, that back here stateside in the comforts of America, with a lot of restrictions and a lot of stress that's now put on us from COVID, everything else that's happening in the world, our own personal lives, I think our own personal lives have been pushed aside, and it's what's going on with politics, the election and shutdowns and COVID. And really, it's making a lot of people question things that have never been questioned before. And we're in an unprecedented time that our country has never been in. Businesses have never faced what's happening here at all. But here we are. We're seeing businesses hand out extra money to their employees to say, hey, thank you for what you've done. You see businesses starting programs to reach out to their employees to say, hey, well, we know this thing is hard, and we need to just figure this thing out. We need to figure it out together. Hi, we're here today, right? Companies who are forward thinking are tackling these problems right here, because they know, and we know, that the next time you get hit with something, that's not the time to prepare. You're in it. All you're doing is reacting. It's when we have the downtime here that we're able to prepare, reflect, build our mental models, maybe adopt some new sets of rules to live by, maybe a mantra that boils to the surface, some that we can grab onto in this time of offness, and find that gleaming light, right? Find that beaming light that you can rally around.
So I'll pop in just to say a few notes from what I've picked up on, and we're going to go into a little bit of Q&A next, but I just wanted to pop by here and make mention of a few little things here. So we saw this speech delivered to a team in a locker room who was going out onto the field as an 0-5 team in an inaugural year where they were expected to do really, really well. And hear a message around those 5 rules that we just heard. And frankly, like, everyone knew that this team needed to get like aware of what was at stake here, to the point where they saw it as an individual responsibility to make sure these things are a part of their lives, and certainly a part of this moment that they were about to take the field to do. So an 0-5 team that was going against a 5-0 team who had all the swagger in the world, and to be able to take and harness these messages into their lives in that moment, just like that. Yes, it's a sports field. That should actually be like kind of a more difficult place to execute, because you really don't know how it's gonna roll out. But a team that had things going kind of just by the edge, they lost almost every game that was their 0-5 game by in overtime. So just eking by is not good enough, to the point where you have these things instill, and that team ended up winning and setting records. They had the most goals ever scored in a game. They actually stayed in the whole season because they scored so many goals in that game and another game. So just wanted to bring that up. The other point I wanted to make about the screen that's clearly extremely blurry at this moment, I wonder if I can drag it along to see. There was coalition forces involved in this day and in this moment. So the guy that's on the radio right there with the pole, and he's got his hand again on his ear, he's from Great Britain. And he infused himself and his mentality in this team, and they accepted him just like that, like he was one of their own. And they got to really be a part of this wonderful moment that they had a success at the end of really trying times. So I just wanted to make that other point, because Eric has told me this story, and I've really learned a lot from it, and I just wanted to add that piece in. So with that, we're going to take a second for some Q&A, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. I might pop back on to kind of wrap up after we bring together the Q&A. But I'm going to go on to stop this screen share so I can see if anybody has questions or wanted to share something that they've seen lately that may have sparked from the first presentation, maybe just in your own life in the quiets of like how you do your day-to-day self. So I'll leave it open now. And again, like all you have to do is hit, I think it's under participants, and you can raise your hand that way. Mike, if you had anything to pop by, I'll just call you out just in case you had any reflection based on this too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the ideas that you're bringing up just they relate so well to us as a team and as individuals. And I think that's it's just really important to note that you know we're just a bunch of doers, and that's kind of like our leadership kind of you know what that's the word that I wrote down when you brought up your motto, you're saying your leaders and whether they do. Under leaders I said doers, because the leaders in our company are those people who just constantly are out there doing different things, trying different things, whether they're failing or whether they're succeeding, they're still doing. And I think that's an important point that really resonated with me, both in the first session with Eric's story and going through that process. Is you just got to do right. Like, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from making that next decision to change something up, or to stay a little later, or come in a little earlier, or to learn something extra on the weekends, or whatever it is to make you better. And it doesn't really matter if that's in your professional life or personal life. I think you can kind of relate it to both. What are we doing in our personal lives to make our relationships stronger, to be better people, to be better husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever it might be. I think it all is just relatable, and I really enjoy that perspective.
That's wonderful. I know, Eric, you have something to share as well. I think there's a lot of energy to doing. When it's not going on, when there's too much of it and it's fragmented and it's chaotic, like obviously you want to sharpen that and get focused. But when you're trying to generate momentum, doing is a great way to start that momentum, and really, we talked about before, battle rhythm. Just developing a battle rhythm, and some people I'm sure have that going right now, and that's great to hear that your leaders are doers and they're at least setting that standard. Eric, what did you have?
I wanted to touch on the doer piece, because I think that the doer mentality is a powerful characteristic and trait to have. And in the spirit of what we're doing, this wasn't planned at all, but I'm going to go ahead and offer myself up again as what could that look like stretched out to an nth degree. And this is a wake up call, in a sense, where I need and want all of the leaders and doers to hear and listen. So I was getting ready to transition out of the military and wrap up a long career. And I also had to transition into the reserves and find a unit and go through that in processing. Also go through VA disability, more appointments than I care to remember. And our landlord at that time, which is the middle of the winter, decided that she wanted to sell the house. And so we needed to now move in January. Starting a new job in finance. So I had to take my Series 7 and my 66 and my life and health license while we're doing all these things. And out of respect for my wife, I won't divulge what was going on there, but I'll say that she wasn't in a good spot physically. And so we're in her doctor appointment to take care of her. And I start to feel bad and starts to hurt. And I go white. I start sweating. My body goes in shockwaves of pain. I pass out. Wife gets up off the exam table, and as she's getting up, I'm down. I kind of come to, and I'm in a stretcher, right? In a doctor's office, nice little clinic. Now I'm literally in a stretcher being carted out, right? So what happened was, and then I ended up being in the ICU for about 3 days. And so what did that do? I was doing every possible thing you can imagine. I was studying for my tests. I would get like, I didn't want to go through what my day looked like, but it's just a day you don't want to be a part of. But I did that because that's what needed to be done. Yeah. These things, everything's your responsibility. Shit needs to get done. No one's going to do it. So you have to do it yourself. And so I took all this stuff on and shared it with no one else until I literally, my body's like, pal, we're calling timeout on this. We don't want to do anymore. So literally my mental mindset was over here, but my body's like, yo, I'm done. I can't do these hours. I can't do the stress. I'm done. And I ended up in the ICU. So now I'm in the ICU. How effective am I at starting my new job and growing my business and getting clients? How effective am I to being a father and a husband whose wife who still needs to be taken care of, but now I'm laid up in literally the ICU for like 3 days. And the only reason they released me is because I was like, my wife is not well and she's at home and you guys don't know what's wrong with me. So the next thing is I'm going to rip my shit off and I'm walking out the door. So we can do this professionally or unprofessionally, but my family needs my attention. You're doing nothing else for me. So I kind of share this off script to speak to those doers out there, to the people who may be shouldering and taking on an inordinate amount of work because that's what you do. And maybe your teammates don't know how much you're doing. And that conversation should be shared. And the teammates who aren't doing that much can maybe look around now and say, fuck, I'm always be working. I'm just sitting here calm and cool. Like, what else is going on? And people like, hey, you need help. And it's like, oh my God, I never thought you'd ask. Yeah, I would like some help. So the doer the doer will get shit done. And I just offer, consider your own mental health, your own physical well-being, and your own stress decompression and stress mitigation and reduction and what you're doing. And I'll parlay that into what we're doing here is laying this sort of thing out, right? We started with this keynote that hopefully shocked and awed and got some of you uncomfortable. And now here we are analyzing with a microscope beyond the shock and awe, looking at the grains of sand and say, how the hell does this thing work? And then as we move to the next phase of this thing, it's going to implement and share our tools to how to assess your environment and stay cool. And then how to bring in, we have a mental performance coach consultant, and we're bringing Cece in to also share other techniques to keep your stress reduction down and to keep your mental clarity and creativity up. I know that was just a little bit of a sidebar, but Mike, when you said the doer aspect and just knowing what kind of leader you are, and knowing what kind of leaders you have on your team. I mean, everyone we've spoke to is a high energy go-getter. And that's awesome. And so that's a challenge to each one of you to freaking check on each other more than you probably should. And to check in with the person who is the strongest and who is like Teflon. I promise they need a break. I promise you they can use assistance. I promise. So if we walk away from anything today, it's that. And so thanks, Mike, for making a different punchline tonight.
Yeah, I think
Does that make sense?
Entering into your next day, week, month, as we go into the holidays, especially balancing a lot of unknowns with holidays and who's going where and who can't go anywhere and all that stuff. Check on your friend, check on your coworkers. You know each other. You spend more time with each other, like I said, more than some people do with their own families. Also, I know, Chelsea, you had your hand up for a little bit. I'm going to let that go in case you didn't want to speak up, but also wanted to offer up, like, we're, ready to hop on and take anybody else's thoughts that you had on battle drills, questions that you might have about, like, how do I implement this? Like, what does that look like in my life if we didn't get into that enough so far? So I'll just give you guys a couple seconds if anybody had any hands to raise. Yeah, Chelsea, go ahead. I think I can. Let me take you off mute. I don't know if that's something I have to do or.
I think I did it. I think I did it. Yeah. Okay. There was two things at the beginning that Eric said that I thought were really interesting that I hadn't really thought about before. One was culture compels you to do heroic things. I think that's really interesting and kind of integrates really well with the battle drills because you kind of create that culture by doing those things daily, but then they become, like, for instance, like, two things that I do every single day in the clinic that just now become natural are greeting everyone with a smile when they walk in the door, and then saying thank you to our like support staff when I leave every day. And I did it at the beginning as like a drill type of like, I'm just going to be doing this every day because this is what I should do. But now like the culture that it creates makes, I want to do all those things. Like I'm happy to see everyone who walks in the door, and I want to smile to everyone who comes in. And I'm one of those people that believes a smile goes a long way. So like I'm almost already smiling anyway. And, you know, and then saying thank you because I mean it at the end of the day, instead of it just being like this drill type of thing. So I think like those things like not only create culture, but make your drilling type things easier because you mean them and you want to support everybody.
Yeah, you're walking the walk. And I think also, you know, when we're challenging, you know, Mike and the whole leadership team also challenges so many of the other people who are the PT staff and things like that to go out and find passions or to go grow your own version of a business, because you will be supported in that. Sorry about that. What happens when you go out to do that thing and you need support, but you haven't really built support by your extension of your own generosity and things like that? So it's something that I think, Chelsea, you're probably banking a lot of good things with people by walking that way, by doing those things day to day, because people will be willing to, you know, hop on and help you with, you know, supporting some endeavor that you want to do, and who could use a little bit more of that day to day. And I thank you a lot for, I'm looking at you where you are on my camera. Thank you so much for sharing those specifics, those practical things that you've implemented, because I think those are things that, you know, the other people listening here, the other team members can start to go, oh yeah, that's easy. I do, yeah. Or I already do that too. That's great. I'm glad we're both doing that. That's culturally, you know, on par.
Was there, I'm going to pose a question to the group. Was there any particular rule that stood out more than the others? Something that resonated with you deeper or more impactful to you personally, professionally?
And if you don't want to answer too, like we'd love to see that in the chat. Like punch away and let us know what was your favorite or what resonated. And also, obviously, if you want to pop in and share, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and so as we're there's a lot of stuff to process here, and in the moment, and at the tail end of a really long day, which I certainly understand and respect everyone's time and mental energy. So what we've also done is provided and created a workbook that's very specific to what we talked about today. And right on, Chelsea, and kind of what you can do to look at it and scribble down some notes and write some things out. There's a really powerful thing that occurs when you write something down, and it's even more powerful when it's a spoken word and shared, and it's, you know, put out there for everyone to hear. So we have the workbook that can help facilitate some other deeper conversations, maybe one-on-one or in private with each other. And that's the goal, and that's the hope, that these things spark some comfortable and uncomfortable thoughts, and have to share that with each other. And maybe that's something that you're sharing up and down and left and right with each other. And that's the spirit of it. Our DMs are always open for that social media piece. Yeah, everything's your responsibility. No one's going to save you. Kind of wraps up a whole lot of things when you think about it.
Hey, Eric, something that I wanted and Alexis to kind of talk to you about is the idea of kill what needs to be killed, and talking about squashing all the negativity and going towards that positive outlook. That's something that I obviously try to do every day, and point to the positives and things rather than the negatives. Do you have any advice on where that could actually hurt us, where we don't focus enough on negative things, and then we miss something?
I think that's a outstanding observation, because you push anything enough, there's detriment, right? You take everything's your responsibility, and you know, I put myself in the ICU. So you look at kill what needs to be killed. Does that mean that stifles all conversations? No. Does that mean everything automatically is hunky dory, happy, rainbows, cupcakes, sunshines, puppies, and kittens? Probably not. Does that allow and empower someone to say, hey, Mike, this sucks and I don't like it, and also then provide a solution for it? Maybe that's the goal. And so this is not to, hey, if you have something negative, be quiet, or if there's something not going well, don't say it. Quite the opposite. It's to kill off the things that aren't part of that team culture. It's to kill off things that are not engaging with the vision and mission and direction you want to go. And so what does that mean? Well, if we're vulnerable with each other and there's an element of trust, I know I can talk to Chelsea and say, hey, Chelsea, I'm fucking just in a bad mental where I'm at. So I would say where I'm at, I'm just in a bad mental space today. And I don't have the energy and I'm not doing it. Does that mean I'm bringing negativity to her and she's telling me to shut up and this is no place for that? I think probably not. It's that, hey, if we're vulnerable and we can trust our teammates and we know that there's something beyond the surface and they're not just complaining and they're not just saying, here's what's wrong. Because that's the part of that communication. It's an uncomfortable communication at times. And that's part of the trust and vulnerability. That's why we start with those things. That's the foundation. That's where all these things sit. And if we have trust and vulnerability and we're approaching these conversations, kill what needs to be killed becomes a very easy thing. It becomes almost automatic because we know those things that are culturally aligned with what we're doing and the things that are not. And the things that are not culturally aligned, you got to have a discussion about them. Let's talk about it. Let's air that out. And it's okay to have a disagreement. Are you kidding me? You got to have a disagreement. But how do you communicate through a disagreement? That's the punchline. How do you walk out of that closed door and walk out as a unified team? That's where that accumulation comes in. That's where those deposits come in with each other of having those. It's like, hey, I know this person respects me 5 out of 5 days a week. I see them in the office and twice on the weekend. So when they send me, they come and say, hey, this is not right or this is jacked up. I know they're coming from a place of love and respect, not negativity and debasement. Does that make sense? Does that answer in a sense?
Yeah, I was also going to pop in with a moment. There are some stories that I have from my own life that and I know Eric has had this happen, especially one specific story where you can be surrounded and it could be just a bad day, but like you're in a situation you haven't been in before, or you're dealing with maybe the worst patient there's ever been. And you just like want to look at the person next to you and go like, is this bad? Like, is this as bad as I think it is right now? And what do we do to handle this right now? Like, how do we take this thing and just either cultivate that person into our culture or get rid of that as a patient and say, you're not really for this place maybe. Or maybe that's another person on the team that happens with. But that ability to say to somebody next to you, go like, is this bad? Like this seems like a really bad situation, but just having that gauge is a really, I think, nice way to go like, is this something that should be killed, or is it just me that, I'm in the thick of it and I just can't see straight right now? So I just think having teammates again is another great gauge for us.
You control the controllables, right? You control the controllables because your thoughts become your actions become your behavior, and your behavior becomes your pattern, and your pattern of what you do and how you conduct yourself, that's your legacy. That's who you are as a person. And so I always say, create that masterpiece. And it starts with the thought process and how that comes out and how that's processed. And so again, Mike, you bring up a very good point, because again, it's not all, hey, we're positive and everything's great. Again, it's that we can be real with each other. And when the time comes to have a hard conversation, again, it's founded on trust, vulnerability, love, and respect, to know that your mutual outcome and shared understanding and awareness is here. And you both may approach it from this way, but man, if you end up here at the end, then that's the victory. And that's part of the mission command thing where, hey, you need to go conduct or do this project. Here's your right and left limit, go execute. Tell me what you need help with. Or do you say, hey, here's the laundry list of things in the order that I want you to do it in? It doesn't work.
So I'm going to go back to this just to wrap up, and we can definitely continue if you'd like, or we can, I know that Mike's doing a great job of like kind of debriefing with people, and I certainly encourage you guys to debrief with each other, text, whatever, talk tomorrow at work. I'm going to just share my screen one more second to just kind of close this out and let you know what next time is headed toward. Let me see here. So hopefully you can see that. And I'll just close out here. Sorry. All right, so we had that. Wait, did I just open the wrong? Hold on. It just went to the wrong thingy. There we go. Thanks, guys.
All right, so going into the back half of this training package, we're going to look at what happens to our bodies in chaos and in order and sliding scale, and what does that threshold look like of mental and physical characteristics as we go into these situations. And we're gonna tackle it from kind of the military perspective and how we have a practice of mindfulness in a sense, and it's very forward thinking, very engaged mindful practice. That's the term I'm going to introduce it to you as, and then we'll close out with a performance breathing. Actually, next time will be the performance breathing and ways to keep yourselves, de-stressed and clean to go and clear headed. So we'll have some training tools and techniques and to add to your toolkit moving forward. It won't just be storytelling and note taking.
Yeah, so again, I think it's been wonderful to have this opportunity to hear back from you guys a little bit more this week. Please always know that you have us here to reach out to at any time to get clarity on anything, or maybe you've run into some situation. It's been great to connect with Mike in the midst of this, so that's always another resource to communicate to us. So thank you guys for tonight, and always here. Have a great night, and again, appreciate your time this late time of day. Have a great.
Yes, appreciate it all the time. A lot of good smiling faces, and I appreciate that. Late at night.
All right, thanks, you too, Chelsea. All right, have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.